Hi everyone, and welcome to Logic Loops, where computer science is made simple. Today, we are going to explore some basic but super important concepts in programming. So let's dive right in and start learning. In this video, we'll talk about how we can display information, use variables to store data, perform maths, get inputs from users, and even use some cool modules like maths and random to do some cool stuff. We'll use Python as the programming language for demonstration. I will then leave you with some exercises to practice what we learned in this video. Please do comment down below if you would like me to do a video explaining the solutions. Let's start with something simple, how to display output on the screen. In Python, we use the print function to show information. Let's look at how it's written in. The keyword is print with brackets, and anything that is written within the parentheses will be displayed to the user. Look at an example. We have the most famous word to be printed, which is hello world. And just as we printed, it shows down here that this is what the user is going to be seeing. Let's look at another example, a YouTube video. This is a YouTube video. Types of datas at the later stage. You can play around with this function and even print out numbers. You can print out anything you like. It's not only printing out sentences or words, but you can also print out numbers using this function. Let's move on to literals. These are values that are directly written in code. There are two main types of literals. So we have numbers referred to as numeric literals and string literals respectively. Numeric literals are just numbers like 2 we just saw now, or any number you can think of from negative infinity up to string literals are pieces of text. And in programming, we surround text using quotes. So the text, this is a string literal, is a string literal because it's surrounded with quotes. This can be a sentence, a word, as long as it is within quote. We can look at the sentence. This Logic Loops Academy YouTube. This is a string literal. It's an example of another string literal. Most of the time, you'd want to store the information somewhere and reuse it throughout the program. In English, when telling your friends about us, say, Logic Loops Academy is they teach in a very simple to understand way. Well, thank you. In this sentence, you used the pronoun they as a reference to Logic Loops because you don't want to keep saying it over and over again. We now know that you are referencing Logic Loops. In programming, we have things called variables in place for just that and more. A variable is like a box information. Here's an example. We have a variable, we chose to name it x, and we gave it a value of 2. We also have another variable. Since we want that variable to store the name of the channel, we can call it name and store the channel name, which is Logic Loops Academy. We can then print around saying, my name is Logic Loops Academy. I have 2 videos already. And then we can use that. We can use now the references rather than writing down Logic Loops Academy and the number of videos, since we already have variables stored. We already have that information stored in variable. We can even print ever many times we want without having to specify the name every time. Using reassignment, you can update it by adding 3, which is also another way of updating information. In the sentence, to explain what variables are, the use of they is slightly different from what I just explained what variables are. Define them yourself however you like. But the pronoun they can be used by anyone at any time in English. It is a built-in English keyword. And yes, in programming, we also have a built-in we also have built-in identifiers and keywords. Identifiers are names we give to variables or functions. For example, x and name are identifiers which we just used. But there are some words in Python that are reserved for future. Identifiers are names we give to variables or functions. For example, comments are part of the code that Python ignores. We use them to add notes to our code. To write a comment, we use the hashtag symbol. So everything that starts with the hashtag will be ignored by Python. not be recognized as part of the code or as part of the logic of the code. So we expect that everything now that is written that starts with the hashtag symbol will not be taken as part of the code. Let's make an example. Before and after the commented code, we don't between something 1 and something 2. We only expect to see something 1. So that is how comments work. You can write comments to add notes to your code. You can write comments to explain how the function works or give details to the next developer. Python can do basic maths. Yes, we use arithmetic operators. We use arithmetic operators for this. We use the same symbols you know in mathematics, but with some additional ones, because programming is much more cooler. Yes, we use plus for addition, minus for subtraction, we use an asterisk for multiplication, we use the / for division, we use 2 // for truncation, and we use % sign for modulus. You know addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. You know all of those, but you may not know the last two, which is truncation and modulus. Truncation is a type of division that returns only the first part after division, if there's a comma. So if you divide 2 by 1, you will get 2.0, and truncation is going to give you the first part, which is 2 if you truncate. So if you got something like 2.5, if you divide 2.5, and if you did truncation is going to take the first part. And so how that is. All of these work the same as you would think, but let's focus more on the modulus. 8 mod by 3 should give you the remainder, of which is 1, because 8 mod by 3 should give you 2, because 8 takes in and gives a remainder of 2, because 3 goes 2 times to 8, add 2 to get to 8, so that's what we call remainder. So the remaining space or the remaining number is 2 in order to get from 6 to 8, because 3 has gone twice and the remainder is 2, so that's why 8 mod by 3 will give you 2. Just like in regular math, Python follows the order of operations, and the best way to remember that, we call it PEMDAS, and the best way to remember that is to call the order PEMDAS, where P stands for parentheses, E stands for exponents, M stands for multiplication, D stands for division, A stands for addition, and then S stands for subtraction. So that's how the order of operations will go. So if you have 2 plus 3 times 4, the answer will not be 20, because one might say 2 plus 3, which is 5, times 4, which is going to give you 20, but the answer is not 20. You will start by multiplication before addition, because that's how the order of operations goes. So you'll start by 4 times 3, which will give you 12, and then 12 plus 2, which will give you now 14. We can have also another example, which I'm going to give you steps on how to solve, and I would like you to see if you can follow these steps and follow the order of operations. So I want you to maybe screenshot the steps and then follow the order of operations. Data types. Different types of data can be stored in Python, like numbers, texts, and more. Some common data types are int, which is for integers, basically whole numbers, float, which is for decimal numbers, and str, which is for string, for strings or texts. As we move along, we will see more data types like lists, sets, etc. We can check the type of the variable using the type function. As you can see, numbers without decimal points are int, so are of type int, are floats for floating point numbers. Then anything that is within quotes is a string, no matter if it's a number or not. We can also convert from one type to another using a method called typecasting. If you have a number in quotes, it is considered a string, but if you cast it and put floats in front of it and put it under parentheses, that number can be a float now, because you've casted it to a float from a string. And this is an example of how that works. All along, we've been writing the data ourselves, but we can also ask the user to input data using the input function. That is how users can input their login details, can input their passwords, etc., etc. For example, in Python, we have the input function. Let's use it to ask for the user's name and then say hello to the user. So we put name equals input, what's your name? And you'll see here in the darker area, it's asking me what's my name. Let's put Logic Loops Academy because that's our name. And then this should greet us, hello, Logic Loops Academy. So that's how we get inputs from the user. Now, the fun stuff, the maths module. To use it, you first have to import it. So that's simply writing import maths. Using import maths, you can do things like finding the square roots of a number. Say that number is 16. So let's try to do that and see what we get. There are many maths functions supported by this module. So just play around with it and then you'll be amazed. Let me know down in the comment section what numbers you tried with the maths, what functions. Let me know down in the comment section below what functions you tried that are supported by the maths module, and let me know what was the answer. Now let's look at the random function. The random function is what basically gives us the random numbers. So we use this function to get 0 and 10. It's going to give us between 1 and 10. It's going to give us, so at any range that you want, this function will give you. This function can be very powerful. For example, it is used in online games simulating lottery. So this function can be very, very powerful when used correctly and can be very useful. And at the end, I'm going to give you an exercise where I would like you to use these random numbers. Let me make an example for you, generating just simple lottery numbers that might